Hey guys, Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you, and today I'm finally getting to my full review of the Ontario Knife Company Carter Prime. Now, this has taken me a little while for a couple of reasons. One, I like to put the time in, and this is a knife that people have had mixed opinions about. And so because of that, I wanted to kind of take some time and get a good feel for my thoughts on the knife and for things that could be an issue, and I wanted to really see if it was just me sort of thinking that it would be, or being told by someone else that it would be, or if it really was something that was going to bother me and maybe bother you. All right, the other reason this took a little longer is because the first Carter Prime that I got had up and down blade play. Now this one is solid as a rock, but yeah, the first one had some up and down play, and I thought maybe it would go away as the lock wore in, but it didn't. It only got worse. And for me, that's not cool. You guys know I cannot stand blade play, so I sent it back to Ontario. They were very good. They sent me a new one, and this one is perfect. But yeah, so that added a little bit of time to this review coming out. I will again mention that when I speak to lockup and deployment, but I haven't heard a lot of people complain about blade play, so I think mine was just sort of a one-off type of issue. Now this is a production version of the Robert Carter Generalist, and Robert Carter has been gaining some notoriety. He makes really cool custom knives, but also this year he's had this knife come out as a production knife from Ontario, but also the CRKT Jettison. All right, so I've got one right here, the small Jettison. This is also designed by Robert Carter. Okay, now let me give you the size and weight on this, and then we'll go ahead and move over to the top-down view. Before I do that, one more thing by way of introduction is I've got to say I'm pretty impressed for Ontario's sort of first foray into a higher-end knife, and I say higher-end, it is $100. But it's a titanium frame lock, it's better steel, D2. Now they also have the Rat 1s in D2, and I'll bring one of those in. Well, I've got it right here. Maybe there are the Rat 1s in D2. But it's nice to see, I think they made a good choice going with a rather distinctive design, something that was going to stand out a little bit, something that was going to set them apart. Although I will say, I would have liked to see this design just done in a titanium frame lock. That would have been a cool thing as well, I think, and maybe that'll happen. Anyway, let's get to size and weight, and then we'll flip over to sort of the tabletop view on this knife, and we can go over the details together. So size and weight on this, it is 8 inches overall. Okay, the blade length is 3 3/8, and the handle is 4 5/8. It is ½ an inch thick, so it's a hefty little guy. And it weighs in at 5 ounces, which is pretty heavy, but really not the end of the world. In terms of, kind of size to weight ratio, yeah, that's not great. But 5 ounces to me, okay, is not a big deal. And so I really, I'm not going to complain about this being 5 ounces, other than to say for its size, it is fairly hefty. Now, let me add one more thing, and that is this knife does carry pretty nicely. It's kind of thick, but I don't usually wear like skin tight jeans, skinny jeans, and that's not my style. If it's yours, yeah, the thickness on this might be an issue for you. But if you normally wear, relaxed fit or a pair of khakis or whatever, I don't think that this is going to be a knife that you're going to complain about carrying. Are there knives that carry better out there? Well, sure. But for me, the size and weight in terms of a carry knife, that's not a problem at all. Let's go ahead and switch over to the tabletop, and I'll see you over there. Okay guys, here we are with the tabletop of this Ontario Knife Company Carter Prime, and like we always do, we're going to go ahead and start with the blade. There is a little bit of oil there, that's why you're getting that bit of glare. But this blade is a hollow ground sheep's foot blade with a black wash finish. It's got this kind of cutout here that I'm assuming could be for a finger, although it's quite a reach to get your thumb all the way up there. It does have a very, what would you say, sheeple-friendly look to it. This does not look like it's a tactical knife or fighting knife in any way at all. And generally that's going to be true of a sheep's foot blade. Now they shine for some things, anything that you're going to be using the tip of your knife a lot, you know, maybe opening packages, cutting boxes, anything like that, you're going to get a lot of good use out of this. Even using this as sort of a, you know, if you're cutting shapes out of paper, if you're cutting material where you want that that sort of point down on your working surface, this is going to be a great option for you. Now, if you're doing other things where you're going to require the rest of the blade, you know, other than maybe cutting through cardboard, which I found that this does really well, a lot of tasks that are where you're gonna use the rest of the blade, you may find that a different blade shape, maybe a more standard drop point or spear point or something like that, something with some belly is a little more useful for you. All right, so in terms of, you know, everyday cutting tasks, I can't really complain about this blade. The one point that I will say is it's not going to do a lot of good food prep for you. Okay, it is D2 steel, which is a very good steel. It's not highly corrosion resistant, but if you take care of it, it's definitely not a problem. I have a number of D2 blades and I don't have any rust on any of them. And I don't go out of my way. Like, I'm not oiling them once a week or anything like that. You know, I'll put a drop of oil on them when I put them away or whatever. And that's about all the effort that I put into caring for my D2 blades. And I don't have rust on any of them. Now, I don't live in a tropical climate or anything, and if you do, you'll probably have better habits at caring for anything that's metal than I do. But my mileage with D2 is all good. I've had no bad experiences. I really can't complain about it as a steel at all. In fact, it's one of my favorite steels. Excuse me. So yeah, my take on this blade is that it is a it does have all of the typical limitations of any Wharncliffe or sheep's foot style blade, but in terms of actual everyday use and kind of ongoing cutting, I found it to be quite useful with the exception of food prep, and it doesn't work well for food prep just because it's quite thick, therefore it doesn't slice really well. It could be a little better if this grind was higher. Okay, that would make the transition a little more gentle, but for most of my food prep tasks, I use a kitchen knife anyway. So just kind of giving you an idea of how that blade is going to perform when I say that, you know, for food prep, it's probably not the greatest. What about lockup and deployment? Well, as I said in the intro, my first example of this knife did have some blade play that was an issue, but this one is solid as a rock, and I've watched a number of videos on this, and I haven't heard anyone complaining about any kind of lock issues on theirs. So I'm going to say that my issue was kind of a one-off problem, and go on and sort of talk about this as if I didn't have that experience. What I have experienced with this one is very solid lockup. Nice quick deployment. It is on bearings. Okay, now the odd time, because there's no jimping on this flipper, I have slipped off of it, especially when the knife was brand new. There's a little bit of oil in the pivot, and the oil would sort of be on everything around here, and a little bit of oil was on that flipper, and your finger would slide off pretty easily. So if your fingers are wet or sweaty or anything like that, you just have to be a little more purposeful when you're flipping this knife. Otherwise, though, the action is quite good and quite fast. So I've got to give credit where credit is due on that aspect of it, for sure. Now, you can see that it's Torx construction, so easily adjustable, and I haven't had any issues with this coming loose on me, which is very appreciated. Now there isn't a, let's see if I can get you to look in the back here. You can see the back of the lock bar there. You can see that there is a stainless steel lock bar insert. Okay, you can see part of it there. Hold on, there you go. You should be able to get a look at it. Yeah. Now, notice though, if I turn this over this way, that does not extend out past the back, which is the typical way of doing this, so that lock bar insert also serves as an over travel stop. In this case, they didn't do it. Not the end of the world, because the pocket clip serves as the over travel stop for you on this. So in terms of lockup and deployment, pretty good for its price point. Very smooth, you know, fast and generally reliable with that one exception, which is the odd time I have slipped off that flipper, but again, not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and move on over to the handle. Now the handle is where I'll have a little bit more to say. Let me start out by saying this though. I love the overall design. Okay, I love the look of this knife. It definitely looks like it flows, like it was well planned out. One of the things I especially appreciate is on the lock side. It's very clean. I like this very thin, not noticeable lock bar cutout. I also like the fact in terms of looks, although I know in terms of strength it's not the same. Or it's not quite as good, but in terms of looks, the relief cut being on the inside right here makes the whole package look really clean and really sort of modern. As well, I really have to give credit for the clip design on this. It is a milled tie clip, which is impressive at the price point, but especially what I like about it is the way it really fits well with the design. It just really looks like it was meant to be there. And like the whole knife is one very well thought out completed package. And that's not true on a lot of knives. You know, a lot of knives look like, well, we knew we had to put a pocket clip on here somewhere, and this is how we fit it in. So in terms of just the looks of this, I've got to say I'm a big fan. There's one little hit that I want to give the look in general, and that is this. So you've got this very large pivot screw. Now a large pivot screw is fine and often looks very attractive. Let me, here's an example there, a big large pivot screw. But notice how that the pivot screw being that big is used as part of the design, okay? It's kind of a decorative pivot screw. This seems like it's large enough that it could serve a decorative purpose and be in either, you know, black to match the blade or silver to match the screws. But instead it's finished so that it matches the titanium exactly, and it sort of makes me go, well, you know, was the plan to hide the pivot or was the plan to have a decorative pivot? Like which one were you going with? Because you made it big so that it would kind of stand out, but then you also made it blend in with excuse me, made it blend in with the rest of the knife. So that's my only hit in terms of looks. Now I will say this knife has a very distinctive look, and I think you're either gonna like it or you're not gonna like it, okay? Some people are gonna say that is the ugliest knife I've ever seen. Some people are gonna say that's the coolest looking thing and I love to see something a little different. Whichever camp you're in, it doesn't really matter other than to say it definitely has a look, okay? No other knife looks much like this. Let's go ahead now and talk about some of the actual sort of features and functions. It is a full titanium handle. It is Torx bit construction. It has a finish on it that's fairly tactile, which is appreciated, sort of a bead blast finish there. Titanium backspacer and Torx screws into titanium. I know, you know, you'll hear people complain about that, but I'm not gonna, you know, for the price point of this knife, if $200 and $300 knives can get away with that, I think this knife, we can't really take a huge issue with it. So construction, I feel like, is very solid. In fact, I feel like this is actually, you know, it's a heavy construction. It's beyond just strong, solid. It's an overbuilt, sort of heavy duty type of construction, which is great. The only problem with that is if you go to do some really hard work with this knife where it's a lot of cutting, or you're cutting like multiple layers of cardboard or something, there are some issues, okay? Number one is, for me anyway, is a leverage issue. Okay, notice how this flipper puts my hand down here. Here's my index finger quite a bit below the pivot and almost an inch away from the cutting edge. Okay, now I don't know if you guys know how levers work, but if I want to apply force here, if I can get my hand right up here, I'm able to apply a lot more force a lot more easily. If I move my hand back here, which is where the knife pretty well forces it to be, I'm not able to really bear down and apply as much force, especially this is bad in a hammer grip. Excuse me again, sorry about that. You know, if I'm in a hammer grip, notice that my hand is quite a ways away from the cutting edge. I like to be able to get right up on the job that I'm doing, and this knife does not really allow for it very well. The other two problems here are more with hot spots, okay? And that the main one is caused by that flipper tab, and the second one is caused by the back corner on the handle there. If you had different sized hands than me, I would say larger hands than me, this would be even worse. But smaller hands, you might be able to get all your fingers on there. Now, there is a fairly obvious solution. If this tab were moved up closer, not only would that allow me to get my hand closer to the work that I want to do, but it would also allow me to get my palm further up, and therefore the fat of my palm here could avoid that sharp corner, okay? So in terms of ergonomics, it's not the best I've ever seen. The handles, the corners here are a little squared off. Now, after pointing out those things, those are specific issues for hard cutting tasks. Honestly, as a daily carry, daily user, I was not constantly thinking, oh, this knife is so uncomfortable, it's so hard to use. If you're pulling it out to open some packages, to cut up, your son's hot dog at Wendy's, you're not really, those kind of tasks where you're cutting for 30 seconds and then you're moving on with life. The reality is that this knife did not bother me in those situations. So if you're looking at carrying this and using it, say on a construction site or bushcraft stuff where you're going to be doing a lot of cutting and a lot of hard cutting, probably not. But if this is just a light UCDC for you, I know it's a little heavy for that, but sorry about that, guys. I'm trying to work this out even though I've got a bit of a cold. But yeah, there's some issues with the ergonomics on this, and a number of people have pointed that out. So overall, I want to say this to me is a reasonably well-built, fairly capable everyday carry knife. Okay, would I want to use it for a combat scenario? Would I want to use it for bushcrafting? Not really. Okay. Also, for the price point, it's very, very good in terms of features and materials. Okay, you're getting a titanium frame lock with a milled titanium clip, a lock bar insert, ball bearings, and D2 steel at the price point of $100. I guess the closest competition to this would probably be the Maxpedition Excelsa. I don't know why I couldn't think of that for a second. But let me also add a few other knives here that I think you may want to look at. Cold Steel Code 4, similar finish, similar look, extremely good knife. This is an outstanding value, very tough, very useful, and a little cheaper than the Ontarion here. Now to go the other direction, this is a fairly budget-friendly titanium flipper, and it is the Real Steel S571. It is, by the way, phenomenal. Okay, this is honestly ergonomics, size, weight, blade shape, action, everything on this is outstanding. Now, yeah, you're going to pay a good deal more, okay, almost twice as much, but still that's coming in at, this is I think for sale at a couple places for like $180, which is, in terms of titanium frame locks that are out there, $180 is not that bad, especially for what you're getting, and certainly that would kind of, for many people, fit in the budget sort of category. Here's a knife with a similar blade shape, but with considerably better ergonomics. This is the CRKT Eraser designed by Liang Ma. And this is a knife that is extremely comfortable, and although it has that sort of Wharncliffe style blade, it is offset so that it kind of allows your fingers to be out of the way when you're cutting, which is very much appreciated. But if you're looking for a budget-friendly everyday carry folder, it's hard not to look at another Ontarion knife. The Rat 1 is just versatile and awesome and budget friendly, and so hard to beat this knife. And of course, this is going to be, because of the blade shape, quite a bit more versatile than the Carter Prime is going to be. A couple more to show you. There is a knife of similar size and certainly much, much lighter. Notice though how this knife you know, now I can really get up close to what I'm trying to work on, and I really, really like that. This, of course, is the American Lawman from Cold Steel. One last knife that I'll bring in here, and this is mostly because this is a budget-friendly flipper, you know, and this is the Stedman ZKC. You can see it there on the blade. This knife is, I don't know, probably $20 cheaper than the Carter Prime, but you're getting, you know, great ergonomics, great flipping action, you know, decent steel, and of course a much larger package that's going to be quite a bit more versatile as well. So there you go, guys. That's my overall take on the Carter Prime. Definitely not a bad knife. I find that other reviewers have said they absolutely love it, or they kind of have some big issues with it. For me, I think it's a fine knife. Yeah, there are some failings in terms of ergonomics, but for the way most of us use an EDC, you probably wouldn't even notice those, right? Unless you're, you know, going out and doing an ongoing job where you're using this for, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time over and over again. Most of those ergonomic things, although they're kind of a pain, they're not actually going to impact your use of the knife. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.